Right, we are going to get started. So we'll probably see some more people pop in as we get going. But my name is Katie. I work here with Your Choice, and so I'll be introducing this topic for our summer series today. So thank you guys all for joining us. Just a few housekeeping things to start off with first for our webinar. We are using Zoom webinar, which is a little bit different than Zoom meeting. So a few things to cover. The presenter will not be able to hear or see you. So if you're having a hard time hearing or seeing the presenter, please use the raise hand button. We do have people behind the scenes monitoring the chat, so feel free to type any questions or about audio or visual things in the chat. We're going to ask that you hold all questions until the end. And there is, if you look at the bottom, there's a Q&A section, which is different from the chat. We ask that you put questions in there, and that holds it, and that way we're able to track the questions coming in. If we ask that you guys keep your questions general, so if you do have a personal question or that of more personal nature, the speaker will have his contact information at the end, and you can go ahead and contact him at the end with that. If you would like a CEU credit for attending, you must complete the survey and include your name at the end. I just want to say a quick thank you to our sponsors. First of all, like I said, I'm from an organization called Your Choice. We do substance abuse prevention and education. So, but we want to thank Waukesha County Health and Human Services and the Substance Abuse Block Grant for providing a portion of this. We'd also like to thank Rosecrans for their support of our prevention efforts and also for the CEU credits. So this would not happen without these two organizations. So huge thank you to them. And with that, I will turn it over to our speaker, Dr. Paul Ralston, who will speak to us about addiction and the screen.
Okay. Present. Sorry, everyone. Can everyone see me? I don't know. This is so weird for me. I think I'm on, but I don't know. It's hard to tell. So I don't see my crowd in front of me. I usually see. So my name is Dr. Paul Ralston. I'm a chiropractor in Brookfield, Wisconsin. For those of you who may be out of state or aren't familiar with me, I'm just doing a talk on screen addiction. This organization is I know is a substance abuse, but addiction's addiction, and screen addiction is something that's new. It's relatively a novel thing for us. And I'm here to talk to you a bit about that. I'm going to briefly go over kind of give you a 30,000-foot view of the talk. Some of it's going to be a little bit technical. I'll try to get through that as best I can. Unfortunately, I'm not able to see everyone dozing off, so I'm not going to be able to judge when I should speed it up and get past that material. So I'm just going to go through it. A lot of its mechanisms behind I don't like to just tell someone something. I like to give them, hey, there is a reason I'm saying what I'm saying and a reason that the research is pointing in a direction for this stuff. So I will go over a little bit more anatomy and some physiology stuff. Again, I will try to keep that part more simple and get to more practical stuff more towards the end. But first, I'm going to go over some just statistics. It's going to be more of a potpourri of statistics about just various things regarding to addiction and screens and statistics on those kind of substance or topics. So let's go ahead and get going here. So I have a screen, a Zoom screen right in the way, I think, of my text, but we're gonna put it on the bottom there. Okay, so remember this guy, Alexander Graham Bell, right? Invented the telephone, supposedly. Well, there's a lot of patent stuff going on with him. But let's just say late 1870s, and by now we are at 6.5 million people or 6.5 billion people in the world, typo, and 2.5 million of them have cell phones. So we went from not having a phone like 150 years ago to now essentially, you know, a third of the population has one. The good old days. Remember talking on the wire in the can with the little guys there? We got the old car phone here, long time ago, the rotary phone. Most kids nowadays, the post-millennials especially, post-millennials kind of the 90s on, they don't even know what that is. They don't even know what to do with it. So China has, so we're going to go to these statistics now. China has identified internet addiction disorder as its #1 health crisis. So not heart disease, not cancer, not diabetes, but internet addiction disorder. That's a pretty big step for them. South Korea is, most people don't know, South Korea is the most heavily utilized internet country in the world. But they have opened up 400 tech addiction rehab centers. And they, every time when they start school, they give every student, teacher, and parent a handbook which details the potential dangers of screens and technology. So I always like to mention that, just it gives you an idea of the level of knowledge they have on, you know, the danger of the potential, you know, danger of these devices. 97% of American children between the ages of 2 and 17 play video games. 97%, let's just go ahead and say everybody, right? According to the manufacturers of the Call of Duty, which Call of Duty is a first-person shooter game, according to the manufacturers, it has been played more than 25 billion, with a B, hours, which is equal to, these numbers get so big that you can't, there's no scale for them. That's equal to 2.85 million years, and that's longer than human existence. That's the cumulative hours played on that just one game. 1/3 of pre-K children have their own full-feature tablet. So they're getting on early on with this stuff. And 4 out of 5 children surveyed were unable to tell the difference between who they're talking to online, essentially. The average age of first exposure to pornography online is 11, and that number is continuously declining, and that's really scary. For, you know, that's quite a young age. 54% of college-age students reported sexting as a minor. So now they're in college, they're officially adults, but over half of them have admitted to doing that earlier on in high school, and I'll get into why that's a huge problem, as if you wouldn't already know. Another stat, if you're driving 55 miles an hour down the highway, and that's going pretty slow on the highway, and you look down your phone for 5 seconds, you have, just for 5 seconds, you will essentially have traveled the length of a football field blind. Again, that's a long way. Not paying attention, looking at the road. National Safety Council reports that 2 out of 3 teens say that they use apps while driving, not looking at the phone because someone texts them or to make a phone call. They actually are using an app while they're driving, Facebooking, Snapchatting, Instagramming while going down the road. I know everyone's been in a car. If you paid any attention at all around you, you've probably seen that. Law enforcement officials estimate that there are 50,000 child predators online at any given time. And 69% of teens regularly receive online communications from someone they don't know, and then they proceed to not inform their parents or guardians about that communication. So one more page of stats here. 1 in 33 youth have received an aggressive sexual solicitation. 1 in 33, that's a lot. Meaning that a predator asked a young person to meet, called a young person, or sent them money or some other kind of correspondence online. 55% of teens have given out personal information to someone online that they didn't know. So we think, well, the kids, they're safe. They're not out running around. They're in the basement. But they're doing stuff on the phones. They have the ability, they may be texting their address to someone that they met. Who knows what they're giving them. And then they don't let you know that they did that, obviously, which can set you up for all kinds of other crime, in addition to the trouble you can get in with phone, other kinds of trouble you can get in. 22% of teens have lost a friendship with someone due to actions on social media sites. New research has found cortical thinning in children spending greater than 7 hours of screen time per day. So people go, 7 hours. But you know, I did this talk like a year ago, and someone in the crowd was like, "Oh, 7 hours? Wow, I wish I only spent that much time, you know, online and gaming and things." So 7 hours of screen time. Cortical thinning. So cortical thinning, the brain surrounding the cortex around the brain thinning. We see that in dementia. We see it in Alzheimer's and in early signs of those diseases. You start seeing cortical thinning, and we're seeing that in kids spending more than 7 hours. That's pretty concerning. Children spending an average of 2 hours of screen time per day and scored lower on aptitude tests. Okay. So this was taken from, I believe, 2012, 8 years ago. Crazy. I was on the cover of Newsweek. So panic, depression, psychosis, connection addiction is rewiring our brains. We're going to get into that right now. So what puts us on top of the animal kingdom is our sophisticated brain. So this is part of the trouble that we're getting into. And I go over this a little bit more with some of the more of the hormonal stuff, but you know, the human brain, our kids, we look at them and, you know, you get your little 7 or 8 year old and you can dress them up in a little suit. And it basically looks like a miniature adult, right? But that brain inside is so new. It's still so rapidly developing. That brain will not be fully developed until the 3rd decade of life. So about 25 years it takes for the brain to mature. And that's a big problem. The most important part of the brain maturation process occurs when puberty starts. And I'm going to go over again more of why that makes a difference. The biology of puberty makes the human brain uniquely fragile, and it makes teens particularly susceptible to addictions and mental illnesses. And that's why we're seeing a lot of this. You know, we didn't have devices like this. We didn't have this 30 years ago, 40, 50, you know, basically until 07 was when the most widely used, you know, smartphone was put out there. So we're 13 years in. It's not a lot of time, but it's, we're getting an unprecedented level of anxiety, and especially with the, you know, lockdowns now and coronavirus and a lot of time at home and whatnot. That brain, that adolescent brain is so susceptible to all this addictions and mental illnesses. So we have to be mindful of that. Unrestricted access to screens is driving an epidemic of depression, anxiety, and addiction, the likes of which we've never seen before. It's driving that whole problem. So many people so we'll talk about addiction. Many people use the term abuse and addiction. They kind of use it interchangeably, but there's a big difference. And it's important to distinguish the difference between addiction and, you know, just simply abuse. So abuse of a substance can, you know, definitely have negative effects, but it generally doesn't disrupt someone's day-to-day, just daily life. Addiction, on the other hand, is you're continuing most people will define addiction as continuing to do a behavior or abuse a substance in spite of severe consequences like losing a job, a divorce, or even losing your own life. So addiction, you know, has the characteristic of stimulating the reward centers of the brain, and this repeated stimulation leads to a change in the functionality of the brain. And from a neurobiological perspective, addiction is a really nice flow through, right, to anxiety and depression. Okay, serotonin and dopamine. These are chemically, technically, the only 2 things that you enjoy. Who's laughing at my slides? I can't see anyone. So dopamine, it's our main motivating neurotransmitter. So it's what's released in an area of the brain, the pleasure center, when we perform an action that satisfies a desire. Now, so we wonder, well, why would that happen? So it was an important evolutionary adaptation because the dopamine hit is a survival mechanism. So if you stimulate stimulating the dopaminergic pathway incentivizes essential biological functions such as reproduction and eating. So food and sex is good, and we need it to survive. Thus, we will seek out these activities in order to activate that dopamine high. So it was kind of put in place to make sure we continue to do those things so we can carry on our species. So, however, the problem now becomes natural dopaminergic activities like eating or sex typically come after an effort, and then there's some sort of delay afterwards where we kind of come back down to baseline, right? So addictive behavior such as gaming or using a drug or substance of abuse, that provides a shortcut to this process, and that's a problem. The pleasure center will become constantly flooded with dopamine, and we're getting a constant flood with no relief and no rest, and it's just flooding, but there's no biological purpose for this dopamine. We haven't evolved a way to handle the dopamine flood. So when someone becomes addicted, they experience a shutdown or reduction in the dopamine in order to give the receptors some relief. You got to give that, the receptors need a break, essentially, right? This results in the addicted person needing more of the behavior or the substance to achieve that feel-good result. Our research also shows that people who are predisposed to addiction, so this is interesting, they have a lower baseline level of dopamine, and thus there may be more of a contrast, right? When they feel a greater sense of reward from dopaminergic activities. And every single one of us probably knows someone who's tried alcohol, and even some have tried a different type of drug, and it's nothing to them. It doesn't bother them. And then other people will start drinking and they become alcoholics. And we don't know for sure why necessarily that is. There's some definitely genetical stuff, and there's a lot of research going on with it. But we know one of probably the theories is they perhaps have a lower baseline level of dopamine, so more susceptible to find that more of a pleasure in it than a person that maybe has a higher resting dopamine level. So various substances raise dopamine at different amounts. So chocolate can raise dopamine up to 50%, sex 100%, cocaine 350%, crystal meth 1200%. So you can start understanding why some of those things can be harder to get yourself off of for more than one reason. So serotonin and GABA. Now serotonin, we always hear about serotonin. Oh, serotonin, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor like Prozac or fluoxetine, Paxil, those kind of things. Serotonin is our calming, feel-good hormone. It makes you feel good. As soon as we receive our reward for our dopamine, we get a shot of serotonin that allows us to actually enjoy that reward, whatever that reward may be, whatever we were doing. Along with the shot of serotonin, at the same time, you get a shot of GABA. As GABA is a main inhibitory neurotransmitter. So think of GABA is the brakes on your brain, and dopamine is the accelerator. And that is a little bit of an important thing to remember. Both are constantly halfway pushed down. So kind of think of it, both the accelerator and the brake are about halfway until you get a reward. Then that serotonin goes up, causing GABA to go up, and it puts the brake on the dopamine. However, what if we were to take the brakes off? So take the GABA away. It's a constant flood of dopamine with no real purpose. And because there's no reward, you get no serotonin. Because there's no serotonin, you don't get the GABA, and you don't get the regulation. And this is what we're finding out is what's happening in younger adults, children, adolescents, puberty. For some reason, it's not well understood. GABA is, GABA is the brakes. GABA is higher in childhood. And then all of a sudden in puberty, GABA kind of goes off, and the brain becomes in a way, a sense saying wide open. And because the reason for that is because now you're going to get a big pulse of hormone, because the GABA was kind of inhibiting all those other hormones like the sex hormones. So now to go through puberty, we need to take those brakes away and let the hormones take over, let that rapid development of physical characteristics and hormone characteristics develop. However, because you're taking the GABA away, you're also susceptible to addiction and mental illness and anxiety and depression. unfortunately, or fortunately, we really have a problem up until, maybe the 60s, where substances started becoming widely available. In other words, 150 years ago, let's just say, and prior, you weren't able to get at hard drugs and things like that. They just weren't around. Maybe you could get some alcohol or whatever, but they saved the alcohol for the adults. So that kind of evolutionary precedent of taking the brakes away for the brain to kind of fully develop, well, now all of a sudden it's kind of wide open, and now we're susceptible to all these other things. And I think that's one reason why we may be seeing a spike in some of the addiction and the mental illness that we're seeing nowadays. Okay, so I'm not sure who's sleeping yet. Let's see if we can wake people up a little bit. So people are now carrying around a portable dopamine pump. So the phone here, portable dopamine pump, and kids have basically been carrying it around for about the past 10 years. That's scary. Okay, video game addiction. So we're going to go into just video game addiction just briefly. One of the ways people get hooked on video games, because we don't wonder why do people get hooked on video games like it. Some people it's like consumes their life. It's known as variable reward scheduling. Again, maybe it has to do with those people that are susceptible to like slot machines and things like that. It's like everyone's played a slot machine. You go, oh, I don't know, it's interesting for a little while, and then you lose some money or you win some money. But either way, it makes no never mind to you. You're kind of like, okay, on to the next thing. Other people, not so easy for them. They kind of can't get away from it. And what I think maybe some of that lower baseline dopamine levels maybe has something to do with that. But variable reward scheduling is a reward system that's totally unpredictable. And because you don't know when you're going to get the next, let's say, kill or the next reward or the next hit on the slot machine, this constant tension of not knowing, it kind of keeps you in the game. It's this back and forth pull of, oh, I know the next one. If I just keep putting some money in this machine, it's got to hit soon. And it's just like, that is one of the most potent pulls on the humans. Sets the concept of the slot machine, and the player develops it's just an unshakable faith that the next time is going to be that big hit. Now, they've done studies where they've taken people on slot machines and they've wired them up to where they win constantly. And it's weird, but pretty soon it doesn't take long and they get bored with it. And they're like, okay, it's tiring because they're getting the 3 cherries or the 3 sevens over and over and with no losses. And it's kind of, even though they're winning, they get bored with it. So it's the variable reward scheduling that really just pulls you in like a magnet. Now with kids, because that executive control center for decision making and things like that part of the brain doesn't reach full development until 25 to 30 years old. Younger gamers are likely to ignore things like eating, hygiene, schoolwork, and pursue the games. There's been reports, people that play, I think World of Warcraft is one of the more addictive PC games or computer games. People actually playing for 60, 70 hours, wearing diapers, and it's insane. People, they get locked in, especially when there's a community aspect to it, like you're on a team or a clan or a whatever, and you got other people that are working with you, and so it can become even more, hooking. So video game violence, so this is obviously a controversial topic. Does playing a violent video game, does that cause someone to behave violently in real life, or is that like just a half-cocked theory? And turns out there's actually some evidence that supports it. Let's see. So I have to move this. 60% of middle school boys and 40% of middle school girls who played at least one M-rated, so M is mature rated video game, they hit or beat up someone, as opposed to, 39% and 14% that didn't play. And that was done that was a study that was done. According to brain imaging research, playing violent video games led to measurable changes in certain frontal brain regions, particularly less activation in the areas that actually control aggression and self-control and emotion. This was after just 1 week of play, so not a lot. Game transfer phenomena. I always think this is just interesting, what the brain is capable of. So a game transfer phenomena is a auditory or visual hallucination. The gamers can experience that after prolonged gaming. Some gamers are unable to stop thinking about the game after they stop. And some people, they think that something in the game will happen in real life, and they have difficulty distinguishing between real life and the game. Fortunately, most of this phenomena is short-lived, but if you get game transfer phenomena and you combine it with some sleep deprivation, this can be really magnified in young children, especially when you get into, I read some first-hand accounts of people who played, I think it's Grand Theft Auto, which is a kind of a violent rated video game where you're taking a car and you're running over people and things like that. But if you take sleep deprivation, long-term sleep deprivation, and long extended many hours of playing this, they got behind the car and almost were like kind of still in it, like they wanted to swerve into things. And this is firsthand information from these people who've been studied. Okay, so now we'll talk about sexting. If you have kids watching this or kids in the room, this is maybe a couple slides. They don't want to, you probably would want to get them out. So what is sexting? So I'm just going to kind of give you the laws. And I think there's some people in here that may be out of state. This is going to be Wisconsin law, but I'm sure it's similar across the states. I'm not familiar with all the states' laws. So sexting is, of course, a term for sending a sexually explicit image or a message via your phone. So sextortion is a felony crime that occurs when someone threatens to send your private or sensitive material if you don't send them sexual images, provide sexual favors or money. So a kind of a hypothetical would be if a couple kids, let's just say in high school, 16, 17 years old, one is dating, male, female dating, and then the male takes a picture or gets a picture from his girlfriend, and let's just say he shows it to his friend, and they, oh wow, I can't believe it, and then next thing well, let's just say they break up. Now the friend that was showed that picture, maybe he reaches out to the ex-girlfriend and says, hey, I saw a picture, or hey, send me one of those pictures like you sent so-and-so. And she says, no, you sicko, or whatever, get lost or whatever. And let's just say now he goes, oh yeah, well, I have the picture, and if you don't send me another one, then I'm going to upload it to a social media site, or I'm going to put it on the internet somehow. Now, all of a sudden, he has just committed what's called sextortion. So he's leveraging that against that girl. So, and believe me, that is really, really not that uncommon, unfortunately. And so that is a felony, and these are not easy penalties either. And I'm going to go over that right now. So under Wisconsin's child pornography law, it's illegal to possess or view a visual depiction of a child engaged in sexual conduct, including depictions sent via text message. It's also a federal crime to use a computer to ship, transport, receive, distribute, or reproduce for distribution a depiction of a minor engaging in sexually explicit conduct or any material that otherwise constitutes child pornography. It's another federal crime to promote or solicit sexually explicit material involving a minor. Even if a teen is prosecuted for sexting in juvenile court, punishment can be up to $10,000 and 3.5 years in jail. And an adult who possesses or views child pornography, including sex messages, may face a $100,000 fine, 20 years in jail, or both. In addition, this is the big one, an adult punished under Wisconsin state laws for sexting with a minor may have to register as a sex offender. And if you are familiar with that, you'd almost rather take the jail time or the money rather than be labeled as a sex offender. If you were labeled as a sex offender, it's game over. I mean, your life is essentially done. It's very, very difficult to get past that. So this is like really serious, heavy stuff. So we have to, it's so innocuous to just be holding your phone. It's just like, well, it's my phone, whatever. It's harmless. I'm doing whatever. There's no regulation on, when you're especially a teen, that impulse control just isn't there, and you're largely unsupervised in your room by yourself. It's just really dangerous. So it's like with teens, I say, well, this is like the aversion of a kid playing with a knife or something. A teenager playing with a phone can lead to disastrous consequences, especially when they're not aware. A lot of what this talk is about is making, just education, making people aware of how serious it is and how potentially life ruining it can be. So we'll go over hypertexting. So as you can probably figure out, hypertexting is sending tons of texts. So Americans send, this is crazy, 69,000 texts a second, with over 6 billion texts sent per day. Now, the younger the person is, the more texts that they send. And users between the ages of 18 and 24 send an average of 109 and a half texts per day, more than 3,200 a month, it's insane. This is why we're getting into some of the carpal tunnel stuff in the younger population. I'll go over that in another slide. While boys and girls text at the same frequency, the girls have more, they tend to have more of an emotional, psychological attachment to texting behavior. And because of that, they tend to have a little bit more of a difficulty controlling it. Again, there's a difference between just sending a large amount of text messages and compulsive texting. Much in the same way that the amount of substance ingested, it doesn't mean you're addicted just because you're doing it a lot. It means you're abusing it. So again, there's two different things. Two people, let's say, drink the same amount of alcohol. One is unable to cut back, or they lie about it. That would be considered the more serious problem. Surprise, surprise, compulsive texting, compulsive texters, they also have a higher risk. So it's a higher risk of other impulse control habits, such as trying a drug or abusing alcohol, or multiple sexual partners at a young age. And it's the same type of risk scenario there. So technoference. Technoference is everyday interferences and intrusions from mobile phone use. In a recent Australian study, men and women reported using phones as a coping strategy rather than deal with more pressing issues. I've definitely been guilty of this myself. Something I don't want to deal with or make a phone call about or handle. Sometimes I'll just go, oh, maybe I'll get on my phone, I'll check the email or something. You're kind of like, you're really not doing what you need to be doing. You're kind of, you're using it as a coping strategy. Or you jump onto a video game and just kind of zone out, 1 in 5 women and 1 in 8 men now lose sleep due to the time they spend on their phones. And let's move this so I can see that. 14% of women and 8.5% of men try to hide the amount of time they spend on their phones. So they're actually trying to hide and pretend like they're not on the phone as much. And 8.4% of women and 7.9% of men attribute daily aches and pains to mobile phone use. Like, oh, neck's hurting or looking down too much and whatnot. Phubbing is Phubbing. That's a new term. It's called phone snubbing. So if you're talking to someone and they're in conversation with you and you're looking at them eye to eye, and they kind of look down at their phone and they start kind of texting and they look back at you, that's considered your phone snubbing. You're essentially giving that person you're in a dialogue with or a conversation with, you're giving them, hey, whatever is going on the device is more important than what you and I are discussing right now. So that's a new term. We didn't have that term a few years ago. Okay, strains and depression. Most studies back up the theory that as social media and technology have made us more connected, we're becoming increasingly depressed. Aside from the potential for increased anxiety and depression from too much social media, other recent clinical research is also linking depression just to increase internet use. So just simply being on the computer more, increasing the internet usage, being linked to depression. 1998 Carnegie Mellon University study found that web use over a 2-year period was linked to increased depression, loneliness, and the loss of real world friends. Now, of course, social media such as Facebook and Instagram, of course, that can temporarily relieve loneliness that a person may feel, but it doesn't solve the underlying need for that real world connection, real world communication, in person. With the lack of real world friendships and the peer interaction, the dependence on the phone and internet grows. And then that just feeds into this vicious cycle, this bad cycle of being disconnected, even though you're kind of connected from a virtual way. And it's just an awful thing. A 2014 study in the journal Comprehensive Psychology looked at 2,293 seventh graders and found that internet addiction exacerbated depression, hostility, and social anxiety. Okay, nobody likes me, so they increased the dose of likes. I miss everyone being up in front of everyone. It's as much more entertaining to do, but okay, less social, more media. We're social creatures by nature, so we need that human connection. And for a conversation to have social relevance, 70% of the time you have to have eye contact. And that's for that conversation to have some sort of relevance between the other person. Today's adolescents maintain eye contact 20 to 30% of the time. Less than half of the time, you really need to have that connection. Let's see, that's 27, how many? Says 2.27 billion people are on Facebook. And face depression, so we put our best selves, best version of ourselves on social media, whatever that version of ourselves, the best picture, or the best vacation, or the best trip, whatever it is, that's the version. So you walk in, let's say you have your family over for Thanksgiving, and you go, oh my God, this place is a disaster. We're going to clean it up. And we clean everything, wash the windows, wash the floor, we scrub everything, we vacuum, we get it all perfect, right? And then the family comes in, and it's like, that's kind of what we're doing with social media, with our personal lives, is like, okay, everybody knows your house is a mess, just like my house, and everybody else's house is a disaster, especially if you have kids. You clean it the best you can, but it's not realistic. But for that one moment and that one day, wow, man, this place they really keep it clean around here. It's like, nah, they really don't though. And same thing, everyone's life is a mess. No matter who you are, your kids are, you're a mess, your kids are a mess. We're always in the middle of something, right? Life is chaotic. It's just what it is, and we deal with it. But for social media purposes, we get that very perfect scenario picture, whatever it may be, and it can make other people that are going through something, they see it and they just go, God, when's the last time I took a trip? My life kind of is lousy, I guess, and it makes you just feel kind of lousy. So this is one of those things, how it can make you feel. So text neck. Now your body's sending you a message. So this is a term given to a repetitive, this is actually a term. This is actually almost, I don't even know if it's in the diagnosis code book yet. It will be. This is a repetitive stress injury on the spinal structures in the upper upper back and neck from prolonged forward head posture while texting and staring at handheld devices. And we all see kids and adults ourselves too, constantly craning our heads forward, looking at the device, and it's causing a bunch of repetitive stress injuries. This stuff we weren't seeing until 40s and 50s, and people that were in jobs for 20 and 30 years at computers. Now, as a chiropractor in my practice, I'm seeing this stuff in adolescents and sometimes even kids. They weren't having this before a few years ago. I've been in practice 16 years and I'm just now seeing it. So I'm going to skip ahead. I think I don't want to run out of time here. So we're just going to go into some of the more symptoms. So symptoms associated with text neck. So you got your neck pain, your headaches, your upper back pain, wrist and elbow pain, numbness and tingling in the hands and fingers, and this is like burning down the arm. Okay. It's like carpal tunnel type of stuff. Children are especially susceptible to postural distortions because kids are like, they're laying on the couch, contorted. They're, they don't have any body awareness. They don't have any coordination. They're just kind of learning how to live in their own, physical body. So, very few schools have any sort of ergonomic training in place that teaches these kids how to safely handle any sort of prolonged computer or tablet use. Okay, so sleep, tech, and insomnia. So looking at my clock here, I have about 10 minutes or so. I'd like to get through some things. So I want to get through, I'll just go over this really quickly. Sleep, this is really important. So sleep pressure and wake drive, this is a 2-model system, and I'm probably going to just summarize this as best I can. So sleep pressure, it's a when you wake up in the morning, it's a pressure that kind of starts pushing and increases till the time you fall asleep at night. Once you're asleep, the sleep pressure decreases until you wake up in the morning. Now, at the same time, there's a wake drive that's pushing you to stay awake. And it's kind of a push-pull system. It's a little bit difficult to understand at first glance, but it's the best model we have to understand sleep. And the big thing about it, you don't have to understand it as much, but the big thing to realize and take away from it, our bodies work on a 24-hour cycle. It's a circadian rhythm. And this circadian rhythm is based on a light-dark cycle. So the sun and the darkness over a 24-hour period. And that is what is anchoring our sleep system. So both of these systems are working at the same time. Wake drive is really set by that light entering the eye. And this is important. So I'm going to get down to here. It's wake drive can be pushed forwards or backwards. So based upon what time you wake up is when your wake drive will start mounting and sleep pressure starts mounting. So circadian rhythm is set by the amount and the hue of the light entering the eye. And this is why it's important. I'm going to show you. So a little bit of anatomy. Pineal gland, known as the third eye, is located in the brain, and it's responsible for secreting melatonin. And melatonin is what regulates the entire circadian rhythm. And this isn't just in some people, this isn't everyone. This is a biological mechanism built into all of us. And let's see. So when the light enters the eye, it's exposed to the retina, and the retina relays this information down the neck and then back up again. And it's really interesting. That light exposure is really what is connected to everything. So that light entering the eye is what causes, so light entering the eye can suppress melatonin, and when darkness comes, melatonin rises. And that's when you get that spike of melatonin. It's supposed to make you sleepy. This is why you can find melatonin over the counter if you have sleep disturbances. Okay, so what does this have to do with the phone? So we know that light exposure is a key factor in setting up this body clock. So now we spend too much time indoors under less intense lighting than outdoor lighting. Our rhythm depends on bright light exposure early in the day. This will anchor the wake drive and gets us basically reset. And a lot of sleep researchers will tell you, best thing to fix your sleep, set your clock to, let's say, 7 o'clock every morning, wake up, get bright light into your eyes. So preferably if you can go outside. There's also lights that they sell that you can actually, it's called a happy light. And it's like 10,000 units of light into your eye. And that will help reset your sleep. No matter what time you go to bed at night, just consistently get it at the same time every day. So blue light is a shorter wavelength. It's not necessarily blue, but it's emitted from backlit screens like TVs, smartphones, iPads, tablets, computer screens, etc. And what happens is we just get this blue light exposure all day and all night because we're on our phones, we're laying on our phones at night, laying in the bed with them. So that can seriously disrupt sleep patterns. So low levels of melatonin decreased by blue light exposure is associated with subjective sleeplessness. Melatonin suppression is linked to risk of cancer, impaired immune function, associated with all kinds of cardiometabolic disturbances like type 2 diabetes, obesity, heart disease, metabolic syndrome. Even normal light exposure for up to an hour can bring melatonin back to daytime levels. So more of the story, don't lay in bed looking at your phone. Okay, so try to get through these slides. How do you know if you need a digital detox? This is what do, you know, when you need some help with this? Do you have difficulty maintaining attention if someone's talking to you directly? Difficulty organizing tasks? Do you dislike or avoid tasks, maybe that require sustained focus? Are you easily distracted by extraneous stimuli like an email notification, like a ding on your phone, or a text message? Or, you know, the ability to control where our attention is directed is fundamental to optimal performance in just about anything. And by the way, this is like the same criteria for an ADHD diagnosis. Okay. So just like any addiction, drug, tech, or otherwise, the addict must first detox before any further therapy can be effective. So full digital detox will eliminate all computers, tablets, video game systems, and smartphones, and an extreme digital detox version eliminates television as well. Prescribed time is 4 to 6 weeks, which is the time it takes to basically reset a hyper-aroused nervous system. Most effective way is not cold turkey, though, as this can trigger explosive behavior. There's many anecdotal stories where, you know, the kid has actually become violent, and even there's been instances where kid has killed a guardian, a parent, a grandparent, because of sudden elimination of all their tech. Not making it up. It's really serious. So careful with that. Gradual reduction of an hour a day to the point where you reach abstinence is recommended. And once that person has reached abstinence, they remain screen-free for the prescribed 4 to 6 weeks. Okay, so we are going to run short on time. I'm going to skip the chiropractic slide. So recommendations. The American Academy of Pediatrics recommends no screen media for children under the age of 2. No screen media, with the exception of video chatting with like a relative or something. For ages 2 to 5, they recommend 1 hour a day, 1 hour or less a day of high quality programs. So like a digital, you could say vegetable, not a digital junk food. For ages 6 and older, place consistent limits on screen media, not letting it interfere with sleep, exercise, or other healthy activities. Designate media-free zones or media-free times like driving or dinner. And then also within your own house, you know, designate media-free zones like bedroom. I think bedroom's key. Like, don't give your 15-year-old, like, just say, hey, we're gonna keep the phone, charge it upstairs or charge it in the kitchen. Just don't, you know, maybe let's just say keep that media free. Or dinner, like don't be sitting at the dinner all on your, you know, devices. And, you know, of course we all do stuff, but, you know, these are just some recommendations to help things. Okay. Look for signs of addictive overuse behavior. Move your device to look at it. So if you're on your phone like this, don't look down like this. Just move your phone up and then look at it. So don't move your neck. Filter blue light on your devices. You can use f.lux on your computers and laptops, and use a night shift on your phone, your iPhone, or Twilight is what is on Androids, and that will help filter blue light. Put black electrical tape over your laptop camera. So a lot of times hackers can hack in your computer and they turn the camera on up there. So you can put black electrical tape right over that, even if your camera's on. Cut off the plug from an old headphone. Some computers have a jack on the side. You can put in a headphone jack. So you can take an old jack and cut the wires on it and plug it into the microphone jacks, and that disables the external microphone, because again, hackers can send programs in and they can hear what's going on in the room, and maybe you don't want everyone listening to what you're saying. Recognize the difference between digital vegetables and digital candy. Again, digital vegetables like an educational program. Candy is like, you know, playing a video game or whatever. Practice mindful meditation. So, you know, there's tons of apps, tons of resources out there for meditation, which really helps you to kind of detox from your tech devices. Set a time a day. This is a big one for checking email and social media. Don't just check it all day long, unbridled. Just say, hey, from 7 to 8 in the morning, that's when I'm going to do my email checks or my social media logins or whatever it may be. Okay. Look at a distant spot for every 20 minutes looking at a screen. So if you, for every 20 minutes staring here, just look at a distant spot and just kind of help your eyes readjust. You can download a screen time tracking app. My favorite is Moment, and it will give you the dirty details of how long you've been spending on your phone. And it's embarrassing sometimes when you check it and you go, oh my God, I'm wasting my time on this thing. Clean and organize your phone, get rid of your slot machine apps. And these are slot machine apps are like an app that you just get into and you can't get out of. You get into Facebook and you can't get off of it. The Instagram, you just roll into eternity on that thing, scroll and scroll. Consolidate your black hole apps, it's like a black hole app, into a folder and get them off your home screen. So take them all in a folder and go 5 screens deep and pluck them all in one folder and you don't see them. It makes a huge difference. Turn off your notifications so Facebook doesn't ding every time it's on, give you a notification. It makes a big difference on how much time you waste on it. Set your lock screen as a reminder. Sometimes you could just take a picture of something that says stay off the phone and use that as your lock screen reminder. So you pick up your phone and go, oh, that's right, I need to be off that thing. Get an alarm clock, old school. Go pay $10 and get an old school alarm clock, and then charge your device in a different room. Don't cop out and say, oh, I got to have my phone in the room with me at night so I can wake up in the morning. Just put it in another room. You're just talking like an addict. And then you plug in your alarm clock to the wall. Put your phone out of reach while driving. This is a big one. We have always reaching for it if it goes off. Just get it where you can't get it. Put it where you can't get it. You could download an app blocker like Freedom or Apple users, off time for Android users. And those are app blockers that actually block the app. You can kind of maintain your own stuff there, your own discipline. So this is a list of resources. You can just jot them down quickly, things you can kind of look up and find more information. There's a ton, as the research comes around on this, is just more and more is coming out about it. And conclusion, thanks everyone. Technology is not going away. We can't just eliminate it. We got to learn how to use it safely and responsibly, right? So just education's a big key on this stuff. Try doing a 1-week digital detox, see how you feel with it. If you have any questions, like this information, sorry, I couldn't quite get through it as well as I thought I could have. Ran out of time, but then I'm going to put up the final screen here. And this is me. This is how to get a hold of me, how to, if you call, if you have more individualized questions or whatnot. And that's my Instagram stuff. One of them is like, if you like watching old bald guys lift weights, my weightlifter DC. And then my practice one is One Source Wellness 04. You can look us and like us on Facebook. Sometimes I do talks in the clinic, so you can catch it there. Then of course, emails can be sent to my brookfieldwellness.com, or you can call the clinic. So thanks everyone that I can't see for attending. And I am supposed to do something with chat. I don't know what to do now. So there's a chat button, Q&A. And can't get it open.
Do you want me to read the questions to you?
Okay.
Okay, so the first one is, what is the best ergonomical way to use a cell phone to avoid text neck?
Oh, well, okay, so that's a good one. That's an easy one to answer. So like I said before, my mute's off, right?
Yeah.
Okay, we can hear me. So again, holding the big thing with text neck, I'm gonna look to the side. The big one is this all the time. So like the craning of the neck forward puts so much pressure. So simply just hold the device up. Now you don't have to walk around like you're taking pictures of things, but just be mindful. If you're sending a message or something in your house and it's like, hey, I gotta send a message, just don't do it like this. Just kind of hold it up for a minute and just kind of type it out. Or if you just want to relax for a minute, like lay on the couch, like on your back, and like kind of hold the phone up like this. So you're kind of reclining. Does that make sense? And the big thing, the only thing I want you to think about is do whatever you can do to not do this. So whether that's laying flat on your back and just holding your phone up like this, or whatever it may be, or even laying on your stomach perhaps, and just, relaxing towards. The big thing is that prolonged hanging of the head, where the head kind of loops forward. You put a ton of stress on the spinal structures, and you can get all kinds of numbness and pain in the arms and hands and elbows and neck and everything else. So, good one.
Okay, does a melatonin supplement at bed have the potential to cause a child's body to slow or stop the body's own production of melatonin?
No, not according to research, but I don't advocate it for kids. I don't know, this, of course, these become very general recommendations, but so melatonin decline starts in your early 30s. So it starts, if you look at a graph, it starts to kind of like drop as you get older. This is why you hear a lot of old people that are 70, 80, 90 years old, like, oh, I can't sleep at all. They sleep a few hours a night. And so it doesn't help them. So for kids, big things with sleeping really is honestly the light is a big one, and room temp. I don't know if this is a sleep disturbance question. Maybe it's not, but having the room too warm is the biggest disruptor of sleep. This is any adult watching this. Get that room down to 67, 65, 68. When you start getting into the 70s, if you're having trouble sleeping, bottom it down into the mid 60s, and you'll notice a big difference in how you sleep. And light, the big thing. If the TV's on in the background, or even if there's like a light somewhere, put a mask on. The big thing is light though. And kids are the worst because they stay on TV and they're just staring at a bright lit screen. And biologically speaking, and I didn't get into the biology as much as I ran out of time. I had to gloss through some of that. But that signal is basically telling the brain, hey, it's like noon outside. Let's wake up. And so hormonal things start going awry. Melatonin, you could try a dose. I mean, I don't think it's going to hurt anybody, but definitely don't give a kid like a 3 milligram. I think that's too much. Just keep it like a milligram or something. I think typical preparations like a milligram. I've seen like 10 milligram doses though. And it's just, you can get prolonged melatonin, you can get kind of depressed. You can wake up kind of depressed and it can make you feel kind of weird. So there's other solutions for that. So that would be more of a personal, I think more of a personal question. It doesn't decrease your own production though. Whoever asked that was a smart person. They're thinking properly. It's just, that's not gonna, not that I'm aware of. So was that
Okay.
you who asked that?
No, it wasn't. We have a number of questions about whether or not the slides would be available.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how to make it available, I guess. Um,
If you're comfortable sharing it, we can help you out with that.
okay.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Another one is, does cortical thinning occur with adults too?
Yeah. That's a good question. I don't know. I just read I read that was a research study, and I can't remember where I read it. And it wasn't like it was like a permanent thing, but they did show that with that extreme use. I'm sure it probably would. It's like one of those things where your brain is very plastic. It's modeling and molding itself all the time, and you can like they give dementia patients puzzles to solve and things like that. You can make that brain work, and so if you shut down the brain, or like let's just say breaking your arm and putting a cast on it, and all of a sudden 8 weeks later you've seen some atrophy in the muscles of the arm. There's no gravity. There's nothing. It's not working for 8 weeks. If you're looking at a phone all the time, a lot of times it's like you're shutting down your brain's ability to think. And so I would suspect that could be the case. I don't know for sure though. Yeah. Just to be sure though, don't be on the phone too much. Just to cover your bases. Good question though. Really good question, because I don't have a great answer.
All right, so we have a couple just comments that people appreciated the basic information. Good to know. Thank you for this presentation, but it looks like I don't see any more questions. Does anyone have any more questions? Real quick.
It's fine. I mean, I can answer however many you want. I'm good. Well, I know you guys have a time thing, so.
Yeah, so with that, let's see, I will
Contact me if they have questions too.
Yeah, the contact information there. Well, I'll wrap it up then. Okay. So I just want to thank everybody for attending the presentation today, and thank you, Dr. Paul. That was awesome information. We just want to remind you that your feedback is very important to us. So we have a survey link that'll be provided at the end of the webinar. At the end of the series, we'll be doing a drawing for a $50 Amazon gift card for those who completed the survey. And just a reminder that the survey is required for the CEU credits. I want to just one more time thank our sponsors for this event, Waukesha County and Rosecrans, for supporting us here at Your Choice for providing this summer series. And then on Friday, this is an awesome opportunity. We're going to have a live virtual presentation. So teen bedrooms on our wake up call presentation. So if you've always wanted to see this, you know, it's just going through a bedroom tour with signs of drug and alcohol use. It's a must-see presentation. So I would encourage everybody to jump at this opportunity. It'll be from 11:30 to 1 this Friday, and there's a registration link. Otherwise, you can find more information on our website. And then just a couple of upcoming webinars we have. On August 10th, it'll be the impact of cannabis on mental health. We'll have methamphetamines, the basics on August 17th, and August 24th will be marijuana impairment training. And then we've also recorded this presentation. So if you know someone who can benefit from this information, or if you want to watch it again, you can go to our website and click the button at the speaker's name, and we'll have this whole presentation recorded for you. And with that, that will conclude our presentation today.
Cool.
All right.
Am I done?
No, hang on.
Yeah, we can just hang if there's a couple more questions.
Yeah,
Yeah, actually there is one more question if you wanted to.
Yeah.
What would you recommend for students using virtual platforms in giving breaks?
Oh, yeah, God, talk about uncharted territory, right? I really don't know. Because I mean, it's not like using your own device or playing a video game. Well, don't do it as much or whatever it is. But like you're doing virtual, you have to. You're like into a thing. So I don't know how that's set up. So I don't know that, you know, you're going to get much of an opportunity. I just don't know how it works. I don't know if you can, like, if you're in a classroom setting and you're listening to a teacher, I don't know if you can just say, hey, I need a break, I'm just going to leave. Or I don't know how that would work. I would say the best thing I would say is if you're going to be doing virtual learning, as many of you probably will be, I would say then if you're going to be doing it during the day, you're going to have to give up something later in the day. In other words, you're just going to have to like maybe put some limits on normal things that maybe the kid had normal amounts of playtime or something. Maybe put a limit there since you can't, there's a certain, you're kind of anchored to a certain class. You have to do that. So you have no control. So the things you can control, like let's say, hey, I like to game for 2 hours a night or whatever it may be. Well, maybe now we got to cut into that a little bit more or something like that. That would be the only thing, because again, this is like up to the second, it's all happening in real time, all this lockdown and virtual stuff. So we don't really know what kind of impact it's going to have. I don't think that anybody knows what to do with it. So that would be my advice, would be to mitigate other, you know, times that you're on the devices or on games or watching TV or whatever. You know, get outside a little bit more as much as you can and interact with other people as much as you can. And in person is huge. So that probably didn't help.
Here we have another one that came in. I teach college and had to lecture on Zoom for several weeks. I gave 10-minute breaks after each 50 to 60 minutes of lecture. I also welcome the students to stand up during the lecture if needed. That's
great. Yeah, great advice. Definitely. Or, you know, I would say even some people are kinesthetic learners, And like myself, I'm fidgety, and you probably saw me squirming around, putting yourself, getting a big Swiss ball to sit on and kind of like where you can kind of stay in motion. You're keeping yourself from getting too stagnant. I think that's great advice. 10, and I've heard that before. I think I mentioned that in a version of this talk at one point. It was for every 50 minutes, do a 10-minute of something else, kind of give yourself a break. There was something going around, Zoom fatigue, where people were getting, again, kind of like being on Zoom too much. It was kind of bugging them out. So there was something I saw that it was one of those things I transiently looked at, and I didn't really take the time to get into it, but I did see that it was a term, Zoom fatigue, that was happening to people.
All right, it looks like that's it. If anyone has any more questions, we can hang out here for a couple minutes. Otherwise, just a reminder to take the survey, and thank you guys for attending.
Yeah, thanks everyone. This is definitely weird. I've not given a talk like that before. It was kind of weird to keep track of more than anything, and not knowing when people were getting super bored or the material was super dry or something. It's kind of like you can see the crowd kind of zoning out on you, and you kind of know, hey, better get past this part. I'm going to lose everyone. So it's a little bit weird. But
yeah, I think it's weird. Definitely weird for everybody.
Yeah, it's all good though. I enjoyed it. So either way.
You did a great job.
Oh, thank you. That's the first time I've used this thing other than talking to you guys before.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
You learned a lot.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like it's just weird that we went from, it's kind of weird, like, if you think about it, there's nothing else in human history that went from like no one having something to 6 billion people having something all at once within like a decade. So, I mean, like even a car, it's like, okay, yeah, they invented the car and super, super rich people had them for several years. And then some other people had them. And then some other, like by 80 or 90 years, everyone had one, but nothing like this. I mean, it's just like from 2007, nobody had a smartphone. And by 2012, everybody has a smartphone. It was like, you can't call your mom and dad when you had kids and go, hey, hey, what did happen when I wouldn't go to sleep early? And it's like, oh, they got advice for you, but you can't ask them, what did you do when I was on the phone too much? Because they didn't have it. Then it wasn't a problem they had. So we're all trying to navigate this in real time. And I think just, educating and just realizing that kids' brains are super pliable and vulnerable, and especially when the GABA turns off in puberty. And that's why it's like, I like my phone and I use it, but I also like my car, but my 7-year-old shouldn't be driving it. Right.
Yeah.
So that's all.
Awesome. All right. I have to do an arcana one, so I have to check there. Well, thanks again. I'm over here. We'll stay in touch, okay?
Yeah, for sure. And whenever we're back in person, I'm always more than happy to pair up on a collaboration or something if you're doing, like, cause I think the in the house thing is super cool, because that's how I heard about your organization in the first place. I went to that at New Berlin West, and I just thought it was so cool. And that's when I had the impetus to go, hey, I do an addiction thing, but it's not drug addiction. It's a different kind of addiction, but every single person has a phone, kind of, and you know what I mean? So it's broad sweeping, but same deal though. That would be cool. I'm always around, so
awesome.
Feel free to reach out anytime.
Bye. It was
great. There.
Yeah, we're all here.
Awesome.
Not freaky or anything.
I know. Well, it is what it is, right? All right, so are we good?
We're good.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Bye now.
Bye. All right. I gotta go do an arcane training. Are we off?